Morning. This is a special episode of The Elephant's Graveyard, and I am Abuda. Over the next few days, I'll be attending a mindful cooking retreat at Plum Village in France. Plum Village is a monastery founded by Thich Nhat Han, a Vietnamese monk from the 1960s who was famous for using walking meditation and peaceful confrontation to help the boat people, and in recent times to help impact climate change. But that's not really relevant to my attendance. I first encountered Thich Nhat Han in the 1990s when I was working as an editor and publisher in the wellness industry. I received hundreds of books, new publications to read and review, many of which made me want to vomit, quite frankly. But his book, Old Path, White Clouds, which was a history of the Buddha after enlightenment, written by a scholar and historian who I didn't know at the time, impressed me, captivated me, and I've now read 3 or 4 times. I've read his other books, I've studied his works, and literally, since that time, for over 25 years, I've dreamed of going to Plum Village. And now I sit on the cusp. At 3 o'clock today, I'll arrive there. And I'll spend the next 7 days learning vegan cooking and, I believe, cooking for the entire monastery along with the other participants. It made sense to me. I love cooking. Cooking is a mindful practice for me. But vegan cooking is also something that I don't do especially well. So I thought, what a better way to learn vegan cooking in a chill environment and experience Plum Village. What I didn't expect was the anxiousness and the anxiety that I've felt since yesterday. I think I'm actually experiencing post-traumatic retreat syndrome. I have attended, participated in dozens and dozens of retreats over my life, starting from my early spiritual days, using mushrooms and shamanic trips, to almost a decade in the wellness industry, participating in group therapy, group dynamics, you name it, I tried it. And then spiritually, through Vipassana, through Zen, through other retreats. And one would think that's all a positive thing, but some retreats are traumatic. They're supposed to be traumatic, to release something within you. Some retreats are traumatic because the organizers and the leaders are bad. Not a very Buddhist valuation, but that's the only word I can come up with. They're bad. They just either don't have enough practice and are trying to share too early, or they've been practicing long enough to become gurus and believe they are the answer, they are the way. I've met some amazing people who get lost in their notoriety, who get lost in their fame. And all of that impacts the people who sit with them, the people who work with them, the people who are listening to them. So this morning, walking in with a lot of nervousness and anxiety, the exact opposite of what I expected. I have been so centered lately, and yet I had nightmares all night. So I'm going to record my impressions, my experiences, my thoughts, my emotions during the retreat, hopefully daily, but we'll see. And hopefully this will be a chance to heal past traumas, to let go of attachments, especially of my past retreats or my past spiritual practice. This is Abuda in the elephant's graveyard. Day 1 of Mindful Cooking Retreat. Last night we got into our Dharma families, which are basically subgroups to allow you to bond more. We are over 120 attendees, 30 volunteers, and 50 sisters. So it's quite a large group. And yet the spaces allow for it. Last night we were gifted a full body relaxation with all of us lying head to head inside the Great Hall. It's interesting to note the variety of people, but also of practice that's here, where some quickly fall into a peaceful state, others continually twist and turn, need to adjust to their own needs, the setup. The person above me, like several others, did not like not facing the front. So rather than choose a mat which faces front, they just turned their pillow and everything so that I had their feet by my head, which was a good practice. In the beginning it bothered me. I heard every move. I was afraid I was going to get kicked in the head. My mind believed I smelled her socks. You can imagine the games my mind was playing. And just before the snoring started among people throughout the room, which I can understand, it was a long day. And my fear about getting up this morning at 5:30 for a 6 o'clock meditation. I love the way the mind plays with me. I have been anxious about that for more than 2 weeks. As I said, post-retreat trauma syndrome. And yet, I woke up at 3. I could have gotten up and gone to meditation. I went back to sleep for an hour and woke up again and went to sleep for another hour. The meditation was beautiful. I sat. I centered. I found little difficulty. And that is the last significant sitting meditation of the day, which for me is a completely new concept. We've had noble silence since last night until lunchtime, until breakfast. And it's quiet. It's not an issue to be silent. It's beautiful. And it allows you to slip into that space. I find myself meditating in multiple places or being mindful everywhere. It's kind of a very softer version of what I'm used to. After meditation, there was exercise where we broke up into practice groups. So if you wanted to do yoga, there was yoga. If you wanted to do walking, there was walking. If you wanted to do qigong with sticks, there was that. I chose physiotherapy in the van. And so far, there's no question that a sense of calm, a sense of peace exists. I'm interested to know more about the people that are here because it's clear some people came straight from London City, Paris, straight to here. Not judging, but empathizing. They're still walking with the pace of the city. They're still moving with strong intention. I'll be interested to see how things change over the next few days for them and for me. It's cold. Last night was very cold. I have to adjust my situation. But otherwise, it's beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. Mindfulness Cooking Retreat Day 2. It started off early, obviously, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., but, I've done these retreats before, often with longer meditation periods, and the morning one is always the easiest. They make the wake-up bell and the sitting bell so close together that you basically have enough time to throw something on. And believe me, people come in. I go in my jalaba. There was a girl in her pajamas. People come in anything and everything with big blankets. You wrap yourself up. And it's so easy to just sit there. And these meditations are only 30 minutes, which to people that haven't meditated may seem like a long period of time, and it is, but it's much less than the hour and longer meditation vipassana retreats I've done. So even though I do obviously feel discomfort at times, I know that I just have to keep focused for a shorter period of time, and it'll be over. The rest of the day was quite interesting because we had sharing from one of the nuns, and it touched upon seeds, and it touched upon how we water seeds from our senses, which is Buddhist Dharma. That's not here or there. But later in the evening, we had our family group. They create smaller groups, family groups. We sat in those same groups, and it was surprising how much that theme came back in what people shared. They weren't saying it, but I could just place, one person's comments in that seed, and one person, I could see it manifesting. I also came to my own not crisis, but suffering of feeling alone because my life experience currently is the opposite of most of these people. Most of these people are coming from hectic, overwhelming lives in places where they are currently facing the difficulties of society at this time, and find little time for practice. I'm here because I have so much time for practice that I've considered dedicating every minute to this practice, and I'm here to see what that would mean in a sangha as opposed to as a hermit. Because while I do love being alone, lately I feel from time to time, especially when I see someone who engages me emotionally, or I feel something sensually or whatever, I do feel I miss touch. And I don't just mean physical touch, you know? And so, and I work on it. I work on it often. Why do I still need that? Why do I still feel that someone else is necessary when I'm so happy alone? Why do I feel I need anything when I'm so fulfilled doing what I'm doing and life seems to just be guiding me? And so I'm and of course, shortly after that feeling, I suddenly connected with 2 or 3 people. But it's something I have to deal with. I have to understand. I don't like not knowing how to explain myself or what I do, and usually I don't have to. Here, there's a need to explain further. But I'm amazed by the nuns. I'll talk about that tomorrow. For today, this is Abuda at Plum Village in the elephant's graveyard. This is Abuda in the elephant's graveyard. It's day 4 of a mindful cookingness retreat at Plum Village in France. Day 3 was lazy day, so it was quite unique in itself and wasn't indicative of the retreat, but it was indicative of, I think, what I discovered today. I started today upset because my chronic condition decided to go into pain crisis, but more so because it's a cooking retreat and I haven't cooked yet. I've sanitized, I've cleaned, I've done everything else, and I'm like, okay, we're learning about the Dharma, we're doing meditation, we're doing walking meditation, we're doing great exercises, and we have seen cooking presentations, but I haven't done any cooking. And so the day passed, and, some other people mentioned the same thing, but I was just sitting here trying to think about what I would say about the retreat. And it struck me that it's not about the cooking. It's not even about the Buddhism. It's actually about putting a bunch of people in a safe place where they all feel that they can be with the other people, because the other people, by definition, by having been here, are okay people, are mindful people, if you want. And so conversations are taking place. People are saying things to complete strangers that they haven't said to another human being in the world. I've seen emotional moments. I've seen friendships created. I've seen laughing and fun with nuns. I mean, we kicked around a ball today. It was so much fun, except the nuns were so damn good and we weren't. There's silliness, almost like camp. We sing these songs, and I'm like, why are we singing this song before this walking meditation? It's silly. It feels like a camp song. But then as I'm walking through the slow walking meditation in this beautiful orchard, that's just stunning, with a line of 50 people in front of me and 100 people behind me, all silent, all noticing where the other person is so that they don't get in their way, walking slowly. And what am I thinking? The song, the rhythm of the song, the beat of the song, sometimes the words of the song, over and over and over again. It becomes like my mantra. I can't get it out of my head. And it's a silly song, but I think that's why it works. And there's more than one. Because it just ingrains in your head right away. It imprints. It imprints. And so I think all of that allows people to connect in a world where that can be very difficult, but connect already with people that you know are of like mind in some way. And with a set of guidelines for those people that you don't really connect with or that you don't agree with, so that we're not taking away the feeling of safety by being sarcastic or ironic or even sometimes cruel as we are in the world. No, that's removed because we're all trying to be mindful. So, for instance, yesterday I was doing my job at sanitation and somebody there was, let's just say, giving me too many instructions. And I tried to just, calm down, meditate, just do my job. But it really got to me to the point that I was about to just say something to her. And instead, I just looked at the other people and I said, I need to go. Can you take over for me? They're like, yeah, sure. You okay? I'm like, I'm fine, but I need to go. And somebody else from the group came up later and asked me, was I okay? And I just said, honestly, I was triggered by what was going on. And then she shared, yeah, me too. She's my mother. Oh my God, she's my mother. And we had a great half hour laughing about it, enjoying it. And then later, that same person shared something in one of the talks that was the person that had annoyed me, that was so funny, yet so insightful, and at the same time, so tactful. She had to talk about inappropriate sex. And so, quite beautifully, she introduces this metaphor of the cheesecake, because she's lactose intolerant. And so, yeah, a cheesecake is delicious. Yeah, you just want to savor it, and you eat it, and you love it, knowing that the next morning you're going to suffer in one way or another. And so, that's just, I got a chance to see the beautiful part of this person instead of just the annoying part. And that gave me an entire different impression of that person. It allows that space. I understand why when they bring scientists here who basically do the exact same thing we're doing, except maybe without the cooking. I don't know. But the program doesn't change much ever. But it's the space between and the state that you feel. You feel joy, you feel happiness, you feel, emotions. And sometimes, like today, I felt anger and I felt sad, but that's all okay. Nobody's judging you. Nobody's watching you. And I think that's why it's a valuable experience. That's why I think I could actually see me doing this again. It doesn't even have to be a cooking retreat. I've talked to people that I don't even know. Just casually. We've laughed, we've shared insights into photography, and then realized we just came up with a whole Buddhist doctrine, Literally people that I would never even give the time of day to in my life because of how I've judged their persona from a distance, I find myself talking to and even being touched by. I'm literally walking around smiling at everybody, more than the other people. It's not like everybody here is like happy pill smilers. No, but I find myself smiling at them. I find myself just beaming each time I see a face. And it's probably because I spend so much time alone. And then when I am with people, it's typically very uncomfortable, unless they're close friends. I don't know them, or the culture, or whatever. Or new strangers, that's a different thing. But this is different. This is connection at a safe level, in a safe, beautiful, touching way. And if they can't handle it, they're free to say also, and they do. I can't be that person right now. I'm sorry. And that's fine, because they're not negating what you're saying. They're not saying it's wrong. They're saying that they're not capable of being there for you right now because they have something they're going through. I found myself in something like that a couple of days ago, and immediately it made me first see that what I was complaining about was not so major, and without knowing what the other person was going through, to turn it around and go, well, then, can I be here for you? I'm willing to listen. And you know, we spent an hour together. And when we were done, we both walked away smiling. I'm a Buddha in the elephant's graveyard. This is Abuda in the elephant's graveyard, and it's day 5 of the mindfulness cooking retreat at Plum Village in France. Today was another unique day. Today was an overwhelming day, to say the least, which is surprising because the only thing that really was different than any other day is we had a lot more interaction. We had a lot more talking between ourselves. We cooked today. We cooked in a competition, but first I should explain we're in family groups, which is a way of subdividing this 120 people into much smaller, manageable groups. They called them family groups, and I thought that was sweet and nice, as instead of saying, subdivision number 1, subdivision number 2, but I thought that was basically all it was. And to my surprise now, after 5 days of eating evening meals together, doing service work together, washing pots and pans, cleaning up, things like that, talking to each other in between, or even just planning. Now we have to do a performance at the end, kind of like a skit like you have. And yeah, it's a bit of a family. When we cooked our dish today, we all had a hand in it, and we all, from cutting to decorating to all that. And when we brought it up to be judged in among all the other family groups, I mean, it was a team effort. It was a family effort. We even got an award for being the ones that laughed the most, and believe it or not, the neatest, which I find quite strange considering how I cook, but that's fine. Other people must have picked up the slack. But it was fun. People got into it. People did all kinds of silly things, or decorated with real flowers, or it was a source of pride of our family. And then when we got an award, we were proud of that too. And we also spent time with the sisters having fun, because they were cooking with us too, or they were guiding us, or they were actually the judges. But the most memorable moment of the day was when the oldest nun here, who's in a wheelchair, who is taken care of, who's had a stroke, who was the singing nun. She was the one who sang. And she comes, and I'll be honest, at first I wasn't sure if she was aware. I couldn't tell until I suddenly heard this voice, this really light voice singing a beautiful French song. And it was her. And I remembered back to the beginning when they were telling us a story about one of the nuns who'd had a stroke, who has great difficulty speaking and communicating sometimes, or even remembering things sometimes. But she remembers how to sing, and I realized I'm listening to that woman, and her voice was beautiful, absolutely heavenly. But we spent a lot of time with each other in family groups today, and therefore we talked a lot. And anyone who knows me knows that when I'm in a group of people, I talk a lot. You would think this is no big deal because it's still not more than a few people. But after a week of individual conversations, one-on-one conversations, and the rest of the time always in a state of quiet reflection, respectful silence, or limited conversation, suddenly this, what is normal interaction, was overwhelming. I personally had to go off for a few minutes and gather myself, because I realized I was no longer speaking. I was no longer thinking before I spoke, which is something that these days I'm trying hard to work on. I was just going on autopilot, something I'm trying hard to avoid. But for someone like me who lives a good part of their life alone or with people I've just met, the naturalness of the family table, of the way we were interacting, the humor, the sarcasm, the jokes, the everything, yeah, it did make me nostalgic. It did. I admit it. And that was probably why I was a bit overwhelmed too. Because I love my life. I love the solitude. I love the time. I love the freedom to decide in a minute's notice what I want to do or not do. Actually, I know I also love time with people where I'm actually connecting, where we're actually talking and listening. Tomorrow we have to do a skit. You know, it's kind of like summer camp here. Let's all do a skit. And we were having great problems coming up with an idea. And I was overwhelmed. There's a hall, a beautiful hall with a Buddha statue, and it's called Buddha Hall, obviously. I was walking with a friend saying I'm going back to the activities. There was practice for something because I felt like I should be a part of it. And she said, "Didn't you say you needed some time?" I'm like, "Yeah, but, I feel like I should." And she said to me, "I'm going into the Buddha Hall. That's where I'm going to go find my peace." And I thought about it, and I hadn't been in the Buddha Hall. I'd looked at it through the windows, but it's the most beautiful, quiet location. And what I really felt I needed, because I was missing tonight, there's no evening meditation, was just a bit of time to sit. So I went in and I sat, and it was the easiest meditation I've done here. I don't know if it was the space, if it was just my choice, if it was ever. But I got lost in it, and I was just so deep, and yet suddenly an entire script for our skit came through, like word for word what we should do, with a pantomime and some improvisation and all of that while I'm meditating. which some would say was my mind trying to distract me. But on the other hand, I think that actually was the focus of what was unresolved. It was actually my meditation, and that's why it just came out, boom, ready to go for me to present to them tomorrow. And I think it'll be a lot of fun and quite insightful at the same time. But otherwise, as I said yesterday, I keep making important connections with people. And therefore, I'm very glad that I chose to take this cooking course, despite having learned only 2 recipes. But the recipes I'm actually getting will last a lifetime. This is Abuda in the Elephant's Graveyard. This is Abuda in the Elephant's Graveyard somewhere in France. I left the meditation retreat at noon today, after most of the participants had already left. I am a person who leaves regularly, sometimes every week, sometimes every month, but I'm used to leaving. I often am the first one out because I just don't like big goodbyes. I don't like the emotions. I don't think it's necessary because there's some chance we may meet each other again. But today was very different. I hope I will meet these people again. And yet I wanted to see them off. I wanted to say goodbye. I wanted to tell them how happy I was to have met them. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while now, you know I am not happy, joyous, and free. I'm not that person that walks around hugging people. And yet, I probably gave true, loving, compassionate hugs to more than 30 people today, and would have done more. A lot happened in the last 2 days, but I think I'll leave that for your own experience if you ever decide to participate in one of Plum Village's retreats. I can tell you that we spent most of yesterday laughing and singing and smiling and being both silly and serious and deep and light, and it was a day I will never forget. I have been to many, many retreats in my life, and as I said at the beginning, I thought I had post-retreat trauma syndrome because I was anxious about how hard they can be sometimes. And don't get me wrong, there's an aspect to this which is challenging. There are things you will be challenged by and overcome. But if anything, it's cured my trauma, because this was the example of what a mindfulness retreat should be. And it's thanks in large part to the sisters. Tiny little, predominantly Vietnamese women whose faces are so smooth you can't tell if they're 20 or 50, who seem to be serious until you catch their eye and then beam in the biggest smile you've ever received. And then, after listening to you or helping you work through issues in your life, like Yoda, this tiny little sister, showed how deeply she listened to, in my case, in what I was saying, and just boiled it down into 2 or 3 important insights for me. And I don't mean the cliches that most gurus spit back at you. This was communication. This was a person saying, I heard you, and what I heard is, maybe this is what's going on, and maybe this can help. They shocked me, or not shocked, I would say, they broke my expectations at every turn. I really don't want to get too specific because I think this is something that needs to be experienced for yourself. But I can say that I have experienced something unique in my life, and I will carry it with me for a long time. This is Abuda in the Elephant's Graveyard.